if you want to get a true reaction and to see if the response you're getting from someone is how they truly feel, isolate them, get them by themselves, and have the same conversation and see if anything changes.
I had to see myself within you, to kind of understand where we pick up at and where we drop off at. Maybe it was just the authority maybe that you spoke with.
Let's just talk a little bit about our first date and leading up until this point.
Oh, the first date? You mean the day you called me and kept me on the phone? And I
Oh
didn't
my
tell
god.
until 2 a.m. on the phone. You mean that day?
Well, yeah, let's start from there then.
Hmm. Yes, you baited me. I do remember that. You called me. It was like maybe after the stream, and the stream ends like around midnight. And we were still arguing over whatever the topic was. And you was like, but hold on. And that's when I was like, oh man, now y'all gonna force me to give y'all respect after the fact. Okay. And we were just going back and forth for hours. And in my mind, I was like, he just won't give up. He know I'm right. And that's when I think we ended with saying, you know what, we'll argue about this at a different time.
hmm I felt like my friend told me a long time ago that if you want to get a true reaction and to see if the response you're getting from someone is how they truly feel, to isolate them, get them by themselves, and have the same conversation and see if anything changes.
Oh, okay. So you was being strategic trying to get a sister. Okay. Now here's the thing. Was it the same or not?
I can feel the difference when there aren't other people in the room. And this is with me without me knowing you personally at that point. I could feel the difference, but it still felt like we were on stage to some degree, like we were in a performance battle or a competition. So
Mhm.
even though it was less about trying to prove something, but it was still very much so competitive conversation. So
Mhm.
I wanted to
Okay.
see if there was a way for me to break through that. And that's why I kept like, hey, show's over. It's just me and you. I felt like I had to keep reiterating that portion. So that lets you know that it's okay to just to speak regularly, we're amongst friends. Fi-
So you were trying to see if that character was going to change.
yeah, I think there was a brief moment inside of that where you were able to hear me, and I felt the temperature change. I heard a tonal change, and you you were interested in continuing the conversation to make your point, but I can tell that it wasn't about winning the argument anymore. You're just at that point expressing your views and how you felt. And since we were talking about love, you were vulnerable in a moment. I don't know that it was intentional, but you're a very honest person. And I had spoke on a vulnerability that no one can really deny, which is that have you ever been hurt before? And in that moment, you allowed me just a peek into the real you, if you want, or let's just say the more vulnerable side of you. And I don't take that lightly, when people let their guard down. I From that moment I never looked at you the same.
Did you did you feel that my interaction with you prior to that was me projecting that I've never been hurt, or could you just
I feel like maybe you've been playing this role so long that maybe you just never ran into someone who could see through it. So you're just going through the motions, and I was just like, nah, like I'm not even listening no more. I'm watching you. And once I'm listening to the conversation behind the conversation. And there's a lot of people who will come in hot that way. not necessarily like on a disrespectful shit, but just intense people. And normally there's something behind that, man or a woman. There's always something behind that. And once you get to it, those people are some of the best people, but they create these alter egos in order to protect the innocence left inside of them. And I recognize the tendency. So even though I don't know your playbook, I've seen that movement before.
Well, I'll say you definitely came off to me like you always had this air about you of like regulating. But I think it's more of a personal trait of yours, not necessarily a character. I didn't feel that you were pretending to do that because it's YouTube. I kind of felt like, no, that's your actual personality type. And when I got to know you more personally, yeah, it definitely was your actual personality type. In terms of like someone trying to, well, like the clip that I sent you the other night, that guy, that's how you came in.
Hold on, which guy you talking about, girl?
You know what guy I'm talking about? The guy who created the bond, okay? You know the guy I'm talking about.
Oh wow. I feel like I feel like I gotta show the clip. We'll get the clip. We'll get the
Well, and
clip.
I mean that so sincerely because whenever we would be on streams together, you would sometimes I felt like you came up there just to mess with me. But at some point, I felt like you said, like you came up there because you felt I was breathing too much fire on Westeros, and you had to, put the fire out. But when you put the fire out, it was like you would try to ease your way into the fire to put it out, and you would be like, hold on, I got you, stay here, hold it, and I felt like you were telling me to hold on a lot. Like, okay, let me practice patience. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had to like kind of slow down because when I come into the side certain rooms, I come inside certain rooms flying at 1,000 miles a second. But sometimes you do have to stop, But you was kind of like forcing me to stop every single time. And in conversations, it can get there's too many people talking, a lot of people talking at me, cutting me off, saying crazy stuff, and I gotta be witty with it. And inside all of my my medieval sword fighting, I felt like whenever I encountered you, you would come in and say, "This is not a fight, but I still want you to swing, and this is how we're going to do it." And I felt like you was kind of telling me how to fight, but over time I realized that you wasn't quite telling me how to fight. You were kind of like trying to teach me a different way to fight, and even now I think you do that. Although sometimes I have to say, you know what?
Sometimes what?
Sometimes now even now you try to teach me a different way to fight, and I respect it. But then every now and then I gotta say, you know what? A dragon is gonna be a dragon.
Yeah, let me drag it. Let me drag it. so
But
so
I like it though.
okay, so this is what we're gonna do. Um, for just a minute, for context sake.
Now you choose your Gran. This you must feel inside. If he also chooses, you move quick like I showed. You will have one chance, Jake.
How will I know if he chooses me?
He will try to kill you.
Outstanding. Let's dance. Tidak putus kaum.
I'm trying to help you. Quit fighting me.
That's the bond!
You just too loud, Vic.
Jake!
Thought it was over, girl. Right?
Sahelu, Jake! Sahelu!
Okay, you got a point. You
Right?
got a point. You got a point.
You you gonna love me. Okay? Whether you like it or not.
Srane.
Okay? Now I done told your ass I'm your friend.
You're mine.
All right, I'm gonna let you up now. You better not bite me. So that said, uh yeah, that just is to add the context to what you were what you were alluding to, the visual, the initial struggle. Now
Yeah.
let's take it. Let's take the short path to how we even get to our first date, and then um, maybe we'll do that on a to be continued.
So I know that I have gotten to learn a lot of people online. And as much as I've learned about people online, I realized that it's a certain level of learning someone that you have to pair with in person. And, you can't, you have to pair it with in person. It's not in person. I think I've always thought that when you get to learn someone's mind, right? And kind of separately and then learn their mind with their body, it's good so that it kind of parcels things out, makes it really clear, but you can't do it alone, like just learn somebody online and never pair it, or learn somebody physically but never get to learn their insides. Like it has to go together. So I felt like, I had a good amount of time to talk to you about regular things, regular conversations that go on that people talk about. But I had to see myself within you, to kind of understand, okay, where we pick up at and where we drop off at. So there were some conversations, because we don't live in the same state, that was very endearing, and it was very enjoyable to have them with you. But then there were conversations that were not so enjoyable, but they still had to be had. And this is where we get to the point where you had said what you said and let me know, like, let me tell you something real quick. It's I sort of like, in a sense, like they say, we'll lay down the law, but the way you did it was very surgical, and I appreciate you for that. And it jolted me. I'm not even gonna lie, that it did jolt me, because I'm not used to someone speaking to me that way. Not in terms of like your tone per se, because you had a perfect tone, but it was just I don't know. It maybe it was just the authority maybe that you spoke with that I said, okay, let me pause for the cause and reassess some things because I know I'm not, a screwed up individual, but let me, reassess. And I did. I guess naturally I'm attracted to that and naturally I respect that. So
Mm,
it attracted me to you in a way that was quite different than, let's say, having great conversation.
mm,
It added a depth of understanding and connection there that because it's one thing to connect with someone that is afraid to let you go. That's one level of love, knowing that the person doesn't want to let you go. But another depth is when you know someone equally, wants you and loves you, but equally will leave you too, right there. And it's always at that precipice that they stay and they maintain that and strong. So it's not like they're there because they can't be anywhere else, or they're there because mistakenly just kind of, that's just where I'm at. No, like they're purposefully there for a reason. And I felt I could trust that you were not saying that because you didn't like, you didn't mess with me like that. No. But I trusted that you said that because that's truly the truth about your reality that you maintain, whether I'm there or not. So I understood that it wasn't just something you were just saying. You were being straight with me. And a lot of people say, I want someone, that is honest with me, friends, family, lovers, the whole nine. But then when someone is very poignantly honest with them, it jolts them in a way that they're not comfortable with. But for me, and I always say, based on my personality type, uh, that jolt kind of drew me in a bit more because as we know, I like to lean in, you know, um, my fight is different.
mhm,
So kind of like, how it is. Now I know with some people they may have taken what happened between us in the conversation and said, you know what, this is it. I get it. Let me move on. But for me, it represented something totally different. And
mm,
yeah, I think it was quite necessary to kind of like I don't want to say set a tone because we already had a tone, but maybe add a certain level of melody to the tone. I don't know. Trying to say it in words people understand because words are very crude. You have to feel where I'm coming from. So it's it's one of those things. But I once we got past that point, I think our relationship took a different turn in how we respected each other in conversation and just that being based on what we respect about each other, period, based on what we had been through together. Because we started off really, really, really well, but then we had this hard turn, and then it kind of hard turned back up. And I mean, even though it didn't feel nice, I appreciate it. And as I always say on my channel, love is not the end result; it's literally the journey. There is no end result. So
you
that's
right.
how the for me got started, and then it led to me feeling like, you know what, I really need to see this guy in person. And I'm big on surprises, and I know a lot of men hate that, but I'm big on surprises. So I felt like I had to surprise you, but obviously I can't surprise you with so much. Okay. So I felt like I just needed to put, the foot to the pedal, and kind of speed it up a little bit. And that's kind of what led to, the physical interaction. A bit earlier than what was expected from my point of view. Maybe I'm missing something because I be having memory problems.
The word on the street. Well, I think you captured that well. I hadn't taken into, account. I think that's one of those things that has to happen, and it kind of aligns with the red pill to a degree. But there's a level of honesty that you must have with yourself in order for you to be honest with the person you're dealing with, and you have to be willing to lose something in order to gain something. You can't receive anything inside of a closed hand. sometimes you try to hold on to something too tight, and that's when you will lose it. So I saw your value, from the beginning. I just hadn't had enough experience with you to know what you needed in order for me to show you my value and how that I could or we could complement each other. Now, I honestly was kind of oblivious to you even being attracted to me in that way. And I feel like, maybe I commandeered some of those thoughts after the fact. I'm always a proponent that if I can get the interview, I can get the job. I've always been able to talk my way into and out of shit. However, in this case, I almost felt like it was one of those things like this. One of my friends from a while back, he told me, he said, "Hey, Vic, stop talking to him, yo." I'll be like, "What you mean?" He like, "You like it?" I'll be like, "Yeah." He like, "Well, then stop talking to her." I'm like, "What you mean?" He like, you going you
Yeah,
going
you're
you
gonna have to find out. You gotta tell us about that.
you gotta you gonna he like basically you gonna talk yourself right back out the ass, and not so much as in you saying something that is wrong. It's just that it depends on your objective. Sometimes if your objective is to win someone over, you have to sacrifice your need to be right or your need to fully express or make them understand your view or feel you or any of those things. You have to forego that for the overall mood for it's pretty much reading the room. And without him being directly inside of my personal life, through his own personal experience, he'd come to that conclusion that, less is more. And if my objective was to try to get in your pants or woo you or win you over, once I felt like, I had your attention or you was down to come hang out or something, essentially the goal is to disengage as much as possible. Don't play yourself. However, in this case, it's quite the opposite. I'm not in it for a rendezvous. And I felt like if I'm going to entertain you as a possible, even the possibility of a relationship or a future mate, that we had to be able to find common ground in our ability to communicate peacefully. And it was a test because neither one of us had exchanged anything at that point. We hadn't invested any money. Only thing we invested some time and conversation. And it wouldn't be a loss for anyone to just walk away at that point. So I'm a line pusher, a line stepper, and I need to see what you can take. What you can take. Can you withstand correction? Can you withstand even if you write a nigga telling you just to chill out for a second? Even if you write, do you have any self control? And we had to work through that, and I feel like it was directly tied to your ability to trust the person you're talking to. And you didn't know me well enough to trust me initially that I was on your side and that you didn't have to defend yourself. And I think we're able to work through that part, which is one of those critical points that most relationships die at or continue to have the same fight over and over until the relationship is so damaged that there is no trust to be had. And I think we kind of like I kind of forced your hand and my hand to deal with it. It was one of those things like you take the hardest thing and you try to solve it first so that everything else coming behind it will be easier. And um,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, I think we got one of the hardest obstacles out of the way first, which is just knowing that we're both here voluntarily. Nobody's holding anybody. So with that as our baseline, then everything that we do, every conversation that we have, every moment that we spend it with each other, is a voluntary investment. It stops being uh, beneficial. Then we always have the option to step away in love and in friendship. And if we set that as our baseline, then that is the worst that it could ever be, because I think I've expressed to you in a way that at least that you believe that not only am I not your enemy, that I would never do anything to hurt you, and that not intentionally, and that I'm always coming from a place of love. So even if it sounds to be negative, it's trying to show you something, a blind spot somewhere that if the world was to see it, that they may use it against you. But I'm never coming from that energy, and that's a hard thing to get a new person to not only know about you, but to trust about you. And I think we made that transition pretty smooth, pretty smooth. It was rough for just a second, but that's as smooth as you can make that turn that quick. And after that, I guess you just needed to verify who the hell you were talking to. And you were
Okay.
just like, go ahead.
No, I love the car references. We're gonna have to put some limits on men and car references when it comes to women. Like this is getting crazy. Like God, why the car reference? Like it's
You
this
need
is
you needed an
weird.
alignment. You just needed alignment and some new break.
I need an alignment so that
Uh, Luckily, that's my specialty.
hmm. Well, and I think in many ways, uh, after you align a car, uh, you have to know how to drive it. So this is why you must have a moment of, let's say, test of strength. And it's not to say that any particular strength is better than the other, but it's like riding any dragon. It can be the most exhilarating thing of your life, or
Hmm.
the death of you. It could be one of the two.
Either or.
So you have to really know what you're doing, but most people don't, and that's really fine. But I think that's the point of life, is to figure it out, figure out the puzzle, solve the mystery. That's the point. Because I don't believe that we're here just to survive, like, I don't know, viruses or something. If life has a meaning and a purpose, the meaning is hidden in the mystery of it. And the
Mm,
mystery is, the thing that you hate the most could be the thing that makes you the most secure. You see what I'm saying? I know a lot of people, they don't particularly like to, let's say, romp with one another, right? For all
okay.
intents and purposes, because they feel that, soft, docile energy is where peace is at, right? But that energy doesn't teach you anything either. So that's also where ignorance is at.
Mm,
You understand? So it's like, when you, as a man, when you are challenging a woman, this is a different kind of challenge. It's sort of like, you ever seen the movie? I think it's called Clash of the Titans. I think, where I think, who was it, Zeus, or the half human guy, whatever his name is. He had to he had to fight the snake haired lady.
oh,
Well,
Odysseus and Medusa.
Medusa was beautiful once, so beautiful as to tempt Poseidon. When he came for her, she ran to Athena's temple thinking that the goddess would protect her. She didn't. Poseidon took her on the cold floor. She prayed to Athena for comfort, but the goddess felt nothing but disgust. She made sure no one would ever want Medusa again. One look at the creature she has become would turn any living thing to stone. It was Athena's one bit of solace to Medusa, so that Medusa would never harm a woman. Only men are allowed in the temple, though no man has ever made it out.
Yes, that fight. That fight was interesting because it was the most, it was the hardest fight of the movie. Despite there were giants in that joint, that was the hardest fight because she wasn't like the demons. She's not gonna run away from you. Like the giant, you're not gonna see her coming and know where the target is at 100% of the time. Her strengths ain't like anything you've experienced before. You see what I'm saying? She ain't gonna fight like a man. She gonna fight like a whole woman. If you look at her, she won. If you get too close to her and she reach out to you, she won. Like her, it's different fighting her. But once he did figure out how to fight her, he then could utilize her to win the bigger battle, which was further along down in the movie. Because remember, he chopped her head off and used her to defeat the giant. See what I'm saying? He used her eyes to defeat. So yeah, it was so interesting that particular fight scene with that feminine energy, because every other fight was mostly masculine energy. But then keep in mind the other feminine energy in that film was the lady that always had on white. I forget names. The one that taught him strength. She was always very, very soft with him, and she always came to him and whispered to him when he needed it the most. She was also a feminine energy too. So. I recognize that. I mean, I didn't say it, but I recognize that because in my mind, I was fighting to see the piece, but I wasn't seeing it. And I was doing what naturally comes next. But then there was a moment where I saw you creating this opening, and I could tell intuitively what you were doing. That's where the respect started to come from.